So if it comes to when it comes to the reading part, reading, the reading section, you always, again, as the first at the beginning I mentioned to you, always be an active reader. Okay, so you want to read actively. You don't want you to fall asleep, or sometimes deja vu. Deja vu means it's like you read some passage and all of a sudden you're thinking something. So it happens to everybody, or most of the times. So I want you to avoid those and then increase that active reading skills. As you're reading the passage, you should kind of like understand what's happening through the passage. And as we spoke this one before too, basically any passages you always concentrate on these 5 things. Basically purpose, central idea, structure, functional elements, and tone. So these 5 things will help you to, read it and then analyze it, what you need, whatever the information that you needed, you can get out of the passage itself. Okay, so it's really important you focus on those. And then last things, we kind of like look at a purpose, where you find them, and central idea. Pretty much you can see that the beginning of the paragraph, you can see that like how the purpose of the passage and also the central idea building, and then how we can go back and check it. So please go back and then look into that reading all the notes that we went through. And most of the times, as you look at it, these passages, and we talk about it, what type of passages you can look at it in the reading part, and the expository, and rhetorical, or the narratives. So these 3 types of passages normally we see on the test, and kind of like if you know what type of passage it is, then definitely you have a better idea how to answer these questions. Okay, now today what we're going to do, we're going to analyze a passage. We're going to read that passage together and also kind of like tell what is the structure of that passage. Okay, so I'm going to put it right here, and we're going to take a turns to read this. Let's see how we're going to read this. Okay, so where's the chat box? Okay, okay, so let's start it with the alphabetical order, maybe. I'm going to put a passage here, and we are going to read and then try to understand the structure of the passage. That's what we're going to do now. Okay, so let's see. We're going to go by alphabetical order. That sounds good. Let's see. Put it in chat. No. By the way. Okay, there you go. Okay, Anya, can you please read the first paragraph, please?
Yeah. In ancient times, people commonly believed that new life could arise not only by parental reproduction, but also on occasion, by spontaneous generation from non-living material. For example, frogs appeared to arise from damp earth, mice from putrefied matter, insects from dew, and maggots from decaying meat. Warmth, moisture, sunlight, and even starlight often were mentioned as factors that encourage spontaneous generation of living organisms.
Okay. Next, Ara, continue from there. The next passage.
One of the early efforts to synthesize organisms in a laboratory can be seen in a recipe for making mice given by the Belgian plant nutritionist Jean-Baptiste van Helmont.
Okay. Going. Next, Aryan. Mic problem. Okay, Bhavani.
We One of the early efforts to synthesize organisms in the laboratory can be seen in a recipe for making mice given by the Belgian plant nutritionist Jean-Baptiste van Helmont, 1648.
For some reason it's not loading properly. Give me 1 second. 1 second. I'm gonna open a different whiteboard. It's not loading properly for me. 1 second. We'll go over this one. I hate this. By the way, yeah, we'll have some fun time too. Does anybody watch a new movie, Javon? No?
Planning on watching.
Did you watch it?
No, planning.
No, this is a really good movie. It's full of action.
Oh, okay. I might go see it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah. It's a good movie. I like it. Okay, so since that OneNote is still acting up, so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna put this passage right here. We're gonna continue to read. Give me 1 second, let me put the passage quickly here, and then we can go over the reading part and then try to understand, what is the structure of this passage, and then how do we take care of these, when you type of questions you see, because it's important if you understand this. Wait, oh, there we go. 1 second, almost there. Let's see. There we go. Okay, now you guys can see better. Let's see through this one quickly. Okay. Where do we stop? Danish, can you please continue from where we left off?
Press a piece of underwear soiled with sweat together with some wheat in an open jar. After about 21 days, the order changes and the ferment changes the wheat into mice. Not small mice, not even miniature adults or aborted mice, but adult mice emerge.
So as we read through this passage and then kind of like try to understand, I'm going to go over this anyways, but I want you to guys that how this structure is building up, and then what are we talking, and now we're going to go over, all right? Because this skills that I'm going to talk about today, it's really important when you read these passages, okay? And let's see, next to Hriday, can you continue? In 1861.
In 1861, Louis Pasteur demonstrated that, in fact, living organisms cannot so easily arise spontaneously for non-living matter. In his experiment, Pasteur introduced a fermentable material into a flask with a long, S-shaped neck that was open to the air. The flask and its content were boiled to kill any microorganisms that cooled and left undistributed.
Okay.
Let's continue. Okay.
So let's go back and then we can come back to this one. Okay? So first of all, if I read this passage at the beginning, we talk about at ancient times. So we're talking about something that happened in the past. So obviously, if you can read this passage carefully, there is a problem, right? So there is a something, it's basically a misconception is introduced. Do you guys see that? There is a misconception. For sure, you can say that, like, obviously the mice is not going to be, comes from that. Or, the life of the reproduction is not going to spontaneously comes out of the blue moon. So something like that. So it's obviously there is a misconception is there. So the misconception at the beginning, it is introduced. You see that? In the passage, I can see a misconception. And what it is about the origin of the life. Everybody agree? Everybody understand that? At the beginning of the passage, as I read through the couple of paragraphs, I can see there's like, okay, it's the origin of the life. Definitely there's a misconception. And then I go through that, I can see there is an example provided to it. Like one of the earlier efforts of synthesis organism in laboratory and a recipe for making the mice is like, this is an example. They gave you an example of your misconception. Example of the misconception. Everybody agree? See that? So if at the beginning, if I see there is a misconception is introduced in this paragraph, as I read it through, they provided me some example. In 1648, they gave me some information on that. And then as I go through, and then we see that it's a little bit of the increase of what we're talking about, how the life came into the picture, all those things is going up. Okay, so let's read through this passage, and then I can talk about how this structure of the passage is forming as we go through. Okay, so again, when it comes to the structure of this passage, at the beginning, there is a misconception. No problem. And there's a misconception, and then we see an example for that misconception. And as I go through, and let's read it a little bit more, and I'm going to ask Vaishnavi to read the passage. And okay, Vaishnavi, again, can you read this one from here, like there?
Okay, so I read from no to blow.
Yes, yeah, please.
Okay. No fermentation could occur because new microorganisms could not enter through the neck. But when the neck was removed, microorganisms in the air could enter the fermentable material and proliferate. Thus, Pasteur shows that life came from previously existing organisms and their reproductive elements, such as eggs and spores, or, in the case of Van Helmont's recipe, adult mice that crept into the jar. Announcing his results to the French Academy, Pasteur proclaimed, "Never will the doctrine of spontaneous generation arise from this mortal blow."
So as it goes on, and we have more research took place, and then he showed that that life is not that comes from anywhere. So it has something. We see that refutation you can see introduced on the passage itself. Like as you go through that passage, you see the refutation there. The theory of the spontaneous generation by a clever experiment. You see as the passage is going up, and then you see that like is how this is building the passage. So when you read a passage, you always keep that in mind how the structure of the passage is there, and which helps you to answer a lot of the questions itself. Okay, Vaishnavi, please continue to read. You're a really good reader. I like that. Okay, go ahead, please.
But Pasteur, for all his brilliance, wasn't entirely correct. The first life, if we can call it that, appears to have assembled over the course of millions of years of random collisions of non-living molecules in the chemical-rich cauldron of early Earth, until by chance very basic self-replicating units formed. These first self-replicating units, which arose almost 4 billion years ago, are most likely the ancestors we share with every living thing on Earth today. But with no scientist to witness it, how can we know that the dawn of life happened that way? The evidence is embedded in the complex molecules common to all living things: DNA, RNA, proteins, lipids, hormones, which can be painstakingly traced back to simpler chemicals that most likely preceded them in the family tree. Even more profoundly, astrophysicists can now trace the building blocks of life. carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen, to all spectacular birth inside ancient exploding stars.
If you see the structure of the passage, at the beginning, there is a misconception. And as you read it, how the life is going to come to the earth, and there's a misconception is presented in the passage. For the first paragraphs, we talk about, how that, whatever the author wrote it, it's a misconception is provided to you. And then they already supported that misconception with an example there. But as you go through the passage, the structure of the passage is changing to the theory of the spontaneous generation by clever experiments. And then you can see as it goes on, the passage is the implications, the rare biogeniuses over the millions of years. It seems like something has happened only once, so its life is related to. So whenever you see a structure of the passage, like any passage is given to you, you always read them analytically. Okay, so you read the passage very analytically, which means like what's happening, and also pay attention to the structure of the passage. I'm gonna write it down, little few things up here. Okay, so okay. So pay attention to, can I write it? Yeah. Pay attention to structure. And also pay attention to the functional structure, like what's happening and what is happening through the passage. And also, in other words, like each paragraph, how it is serving to the main or the central idea. So as you read through the paragraph or the passage, at the first passage, you will have some idea like, hey, what is this passage is about? What is this talking about? Okay, as you see, and at the beginning, you already say like, oh yeah, this is all talking about the life, all right? So how the origin of the life came and all those things. Now, once you have that in mind, now you look at all the other paragraph, how they are serving to the central idea. Okay, so each paragraph, how it serves for the central idea. Okay, it's really important as you read through the passages, pay attention to this. And if you look at a passage carefully, at the beginning, the first paragraph, they give a misconception. And second paragraph gives an example for that misconception. And then if you go through the third paragraph, and then they have a refutation of that misconception. And then as you go through the next paragraph, it describes implications of the corrected theory. You see that how the passage is building up? So the central purpose of like describing the history and implications of biological theory. Can you understand that? How we can kind of like come up with the central ideas from the passages? Be careful when you read these passages. Have these all things in mind. Okay, how the structure is playing a role, and that makes much easier for you guys. So if you see the structure, let's say it depends, most of the passages structure depends on the purpose of the passage. Okay, structure depends on the purpose of the passage itself. Now, if you look at it, expository, I think I gave you that notes before. The expository the structure basically, in other way, they answer the guiding questions. They give you some questions, guiding questions, and then it builds on that. And let's say I'm going to give you some notes too. So if you have any expository, the passages, they always have guiding questions. In the guiding questions, like, what's a carbon cycle? These are the questions, you see them. If you read that passage carefully, you see those questions, then you can definitely say like, hey, this is expository passages, so I'm going to focus on these things. So we kind of like come up with some techniques when you read these passages. And in the expository passages, mostly you see some illustrations. And also there might be some discussions and any maybe like functional elements or rearranged. All these things will be in the expository passages. But if a passage is the same like a narrative, if you see a passage and the narratives are basically, first they introduce a struggle, intro to a struggle. And then the struggle will go up, develop that struggle. And then the struggle will be resolved. So that's the passage, the structure you're going to see. First, as you read through the passage, you're going to see the problem will be introduced. So the king is trying to having lost his control on the ruling. And that problem, as it goes, it develops, and at the end, you can see some supporting how it is resolved. So those type of the structure you see for the narratives. And if you see some rhetorical passages, and rhetorical passages are basically, they structure, sometimes they can be arguments. Let's see, I'm gonna write a different color. Now, rhetorical passages. So they may have arguments, or there might be rhetorical narratives. Okay, so the arguments are basically, they likely describe a position, and then they refute with a counter argument. But if you see a narratives, basically they tell you a story, and then kind of like and it includes some paragraphs dedicated to logical analysis, claims, explanations, some pictures, those type of things you see in the narratives or rhetorical passages. Okay, so we're basically trying to understand the structure. Whenever a passage is given to you, if you understand the structure, it makes much easier when you answer these questions itself. Okay, so that's what we're basically looking in this case. Okay, now let's see the same passage. I'm gonna kind of like look at it, some few questions based on how do we take care of the questions itself. And let's look at it. One question. Let's see. See if I can put it next to it. Maybe, possibly. Hopefully. I'll put a question here. Can you guys see the question and also the passage at the same time, or is it hard to see it? Question and passage at the same time. Is it too small? Good. Okay. Okay. So I want you to guys read the question, and also the passage is right next to you. So see if you can answer this question. Just put an answer out there. Okay? Just see what you guys think. The author regards to the example listed lines 5 to 7. What you guys think? Yes, for that.
So lines 5 to 7, does that mean like the actual line or like sentences?
Yeah. It's basically in passages, they do give you that line numbers basically. Okay.
Okay.
And that way it's easy to look at the lines easily. But yeah, but for now, I want you to guys kind of like explore it and what you see from the lines. Yeah, actual lines basically. Okay.
So from insects? Okay.
Basically, you look at it because that's one of the reasons we read the passage and try to understand the structure. And I see some answers also popping up. That's good. And see what you guys think. What is the best answer for the first question number? See some answers. And you can read a passage as well if you wanted to look at it, just read the passage also, but answer the questions, okay? Whatever you guys think. It's okay if you get it wrong, no stress. Because we saw the structure of the passage. Now, how are we going to answer some of the questions based on the passage, what you have, okay? Now, let's see some answers already. Yes, very good, very good. Now, if I look at it, the author records the example listed in the lines 5 to 7. If I look at it carefully, I'll make it a little bigger too. So the examples, the frogs are coming out from damp of the earth, mice, petrified matter, and the insects from dew, and the magnets from the decay meat. So all these, the author indicates that these things that people commonly believes in ancient times, right? But the passage then goes on and explains these beliefs are mistaken. You can see that? And also that in fact, the life does not, you know, arise that way. Okay, so the best thing is for the first one answer is the faulty conclusions. Agree? Everybody understand that? The faulty conclusions, basically. See the question, we're looking at the passage, we understand the structure. Now we're kind of like look at some questions based on the passage. So that way you guys can get the best out of these, strategies and all. Okay. Next, let's look at one more question. Should put some lines, numbers too. But let's give it a try. And then next time I'll put the passage with the numbers. Let's see. Hopefully you guys can see. If you can't, please let me know. Try to maximize. Okay, now, question number 2. Which choice provides you the evidence to the previous questions? Again, guys, in a reading passages, always, 2 questions, they're always together. First, they give you some question. And then second one will be, what is the evidence? Where do you get that from? Okay, so they always have that questions, evidence questions. So this is another one. Which choice provides you the evidence for the previous question? What you guys think? Good. See some answers. Good, very good, very good. Good job, guys. Yes. Yes. All right. Okay, we'll check. Okay. Very good. So I should have put some numbers out there that might be much easier, but definitely can see from, maybe as you go through, I should have put some numbers out there. Should I do that? I think that might be a better idea. Let me put that passage one more time for you guys with the numbers. That way it makes more sense. Because it's really hard to answer the questions without that numbers. So let me put that passage and we can look at it. And so that way it's much easier for you guys to. Give me 1 second. Oh, come on, it's too small. There we go. I'll put the passage with the numbers and then we can answer those. Give me a minute. Let me put those numbers almost there. Oh, I went to the last night to the Javon movie. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm not promoting anything. Just I'm telling you, I was excited. It's really good action movie, and that's pretty good. Right? Have fun with the life too, not just only studies, but at the same time enjoy, relax, and structure yourself. Study, put it together. That way you can see the best scores. Okay. All right, I got that. Got everything in there. It's good. Now we can go and questions and so on. Okay, I'm gonna go here. This one. Controls. Wait, this one. There you go. I'll put right here. Okay. Now you guys can look at the examples clearly, and then you can answer me correctly. That's my mistake. I did not put the numbers. How can you tell without numbers? There. Now you look at it and tell me, already I have a lot of you guys have put the, yeah, Prisha, did you watch that too? I see some chat box. I was excited. That's really good. Yes, excellent. Yeah, today I'm a little distracted today. Oh, you did, nice. Okay, so for the number 2, as you guys answered that, from lines 22 to 23, that's basically, it is telling you that. The author states that the living organism cannot so easily arise from the non-living matters. If you look at the line number 22, right here, see the pointer. So you can see from here, the author also mentions about that. Okay, so right here, basically, cannot easily arise from the non-living matter. So the evidence from the previous question, it's a C is the best answer. So always be careful where is that evidence is coming from, or where do you know, how do you know it, basically. That's what it is, okay? So that is really important. Now let's look into the next one more question. All right, next question, I'm gonna put it on, and you guys can put in the answer in the chat box. Yes, Hriday?
Let's say for like some of these questions you wouldn't know what to do. Like exactly what would you do then?
Okay.
If you don't know what the correct answer is.
Then probably, as we are going to go over some techniques as you go through, okay? So as we go through our course, and I am going to tell you guys how you're gonna do what if you don't know the answer, okay? What's the best way to go with it? But for now, it's step by step. Let's try to read the passage carefully. As I mentioned before, try to understand the structure of the passage. And we know this passage is like there is a misconception is introduced, and then they have some example for that. Then there's a repetition, and then from that, like, hey, this is wrong, and then there's implications of that. So from that structure, we're pulling some answers from all of it. So first one you guys answered pretty easily, but we're looking for the evidence for that question. So when you look at the evidence, obviously, as you're reading through it, you should have a pretty good idea where this is coming from, okay? And as we go through, I'll tell you guys more. What if I have no idea how to answer that? We can talk about that. For right now, let's focus on this way, okay? All right, let's look into the question number 3. What do you guys think? Louis Pasteur will most likely fault the recipe described line 15 to 20 for its lack of what? Okay, it's good. Anybody else? Okay, I see a lot of different answers. And that's one of the reasons is reading is one of the hard topics, because everything seems like answer, but always look at the passage for your references. Okay, that's how you know which one is correct. Good job, good job, good job. Okay, now let's look at it quickly. So the Lewis posture would most likely follow the recipe described in the lines 15 to 20. If you look at these, the lines up here, so this describes the living organism, merely states that the scientists disagree about the what do you call? Just reading that myself too. Okay, so yeah, then if I look at it carefully, hold on, I lost myself. Give me 1 second. Okay, I see a couple of answers. Okay, so let's look at it, the lines 21 to 40. Okay, I want you guys pay close attention to the lines 21 to 40. If I look at it, the Lewis Pasteur experiment, and he he demonstrates the living organisms, and also cannot easily arise from spontaneously from non-living things. We see that. So if I look at it, the mice Van Helmont, the demonstration likely to kind of like crept from a jar. In other words, the recipe lacked scientific controls. Like everybody's doing some stuff, but we don't have any scientific controls, which makes the most answer for this one is A is the best answer for this one. The reason behind is I guess C, some evidence from the lines. Basically, we can look at it from 21 to 40. From here, you can see the right here, the Helmont recipe, adult mice crept into the jar. All these, they don't have any scientific controls. Agree? Yeah, Vaishnavi, go ahead.
I have a quick question because I put B as the answer and I don't understand why it's not. Oh wait, shoot. I thought I said no quantitative. Never mind.
Oh, okay, no problem. Yeah, that's all right, guys. Please ask, okay? That's how we can get better. And sometimes we do small mistakes, it's okay, but we want to make sure we're good to go. Because everybody understand, because it says right here, we have that evidence. Always look at the passage for the evidences, okay? It's not about what we think or what I think. It's all about what is the author is talking about and its point of view, and then look for the evidences in the passage itself. Okay, that way we can get the best answers on the test itself. Next, let's see. Next one, line number 40. And if you can see, there is a moral below. What's that means? What do you guys think? What does that means? Good, very good. Very good. Nice. Good job, guys. Good job. Very nice. Okay, we'll check. Okay. Okay, so this is one of the reasons it's always important to have the contextual clues and also having that vocabulary clear to you guys too. If I look at it carefully, line number 40, line number 40 is like pretty much is right here. The Louis Pasteur says, never will the doctrine of the spontaneous generations, you can see that erased from the model below. So in this context, he meant that doctrine is dead as an opponent who has been stuck with the soul. Like, for example, in this case is fatal. Fatal is the mortal means. Okay, just always look at the context itself. So in this case, mortal means fatal. Does that make sense? Good, 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 good. Again, as we go through these passages, guys, I'll give you some information, not just kind of like answering those questions itself. And we're going to look at it as what are the important things that we need to look. Then that way we can get the best out of these. And then we can give you some tests as well, too. And also, I sent you guys a link for the math test. Well, calc and non-calc part. I received a couple of you guys already did it, but some of you guys did not do it. Please make sure you finish that, okay? It's really important. That's kind of like a checkpoint for us. Hey, where are we? We're gonna take it one more time later sometime. And I wanna see how much improvement we see. And similarly, we have a couple of tests to see where you guys' checkpoints are, okay? So if you're new today, you don't know what I'm talking about, but again, I sent that one last week. I'll send it one more time in case if you haven't done that. I will make sure you guys finish, and I'll put some notes as well. Okay, last question, and then you can take a break on this one. So answer this one, what you guys think. Very good. Okay. Good. Okay. All right. Let's look at it together so that way we can get an idea what is this, and then we take care of this. So the final paragraph suggests that the pastor was mistaken about. Okay. So what is his mistake? If I look at it, read the last paragraph carefully. Again, the Vaishnavi did read it for us. So if you look at it, you read that one. So basically, if you look at it, the final paragraphs, it explains or describes the pastor wasn't entirely correct about the possibility of the life arising from non-living matter, right? Just by describing likely the scenario by like basic self-replicating units, or so that kind of like gives basic idea. It's a possibility of life from a non-living matter. So that is the thing we can see it's mistaken about. Okay, how that life is coming from non-living matters, if you can look at it. And also, it also tells in the lines itself, chemical rich calotron of the earth, the early earth. So those things, if I kind of like to think about it, these are the mistakens about the passages, all the possibility of the life arising from the non-living matters. Okay, so always evidence, or you should support your answers from the paragraph. Something you should have read it, and then that supports your reading as well. Okay, we'll hold on to this and we'll continue to answer these more questions as we go through. And also in the next class, we're going to talk about what is the author's language, okay? Because we need to know what type of language, like it is the formal, informal, and it's all these contextual clues. And then also word in context. Those are the questions you see, how to answer those type of questions. Okay, we're gonna check it step by step, and then we practice the entire thing at the end. Alrighty, guys, it's almost the time or about the time. So I'm gonna pause this here. And if you're new today, first day, please stay with me for a few minutes. And if you're, you already know where to find the homework, you already know where to look for the resources, and you guys have a wonderful break or weekend and leftover whatever. Okay, take care, guys. See you guys in the
Bye.
bye, Ara.
Thank you.
Bye, Nash. Bye. Thank you. Samira, just wait for me, okay? Wait for a few minutes, please. Bye.
Okay.